Okay, welcome back. We are on the precipice, on the edge of the abyss. We will see. In all likelihood, there will be, never mind both Bush, remember the Bush campaign? Oh, never mind. Let me forget that. Let me start over again. What we're going to see here is both sides refusing to allow the other side to claim victory. And there are an enormous number of events already going on that spell nothing but trouble and litigation for perhaps months in the courts. Here's one from, let me see if I can find this real quick. This just came out of Pennsylvania. 75% of the mail-in ballots in one Pennsylvania county are missing. Now, we've all seen and talked about a number of instances like this. I've had a lot of stories up on the site showing how really treacherous this has gotten. It is so bad now that I don't believe this election will be allowed to be declared official. I just don't see it. It won't happen. Too many irregularities. All of this Pennsylvania, this swing state, 9 days to count mail-in ballots after the election. This is crazy. So it'll end up at the Supreme Court, and we will see. The court allegedly is a 6-3 conservative majority now, but we all know that the court has not exactly held to its predicted, we'll call it a bias, either a liberal bias or a conservative bias. We've seen strange decisions by Roberts, strange decisions by a number of them, and I don't know what Amy Coney Barrett is going to come up with, but it would be ironic if she was the deciding vote. We will see. 5-4. If the Democrats happen to somehow pull this out, they'll load the court. They'll stack it. This is going to be a long haul. And during the time that this is working its way through the so-called legal system, there are going to be riots, deaths, burning, looting, and God only knows what else. I think that's the plan. Boy, I'd love to be wrong. But when we look at the international financing of the communist, Bolshevik, Zionist, Antifa, and BLM thugs, these are thugs. A lot of them are tweakers. They're just picked up off the streets. A lot of them are Generation Z, airhead idiots who will never acquire wisdom in their lifetimes. It won't happen. So we'll see. Speaking of Generation Z, that is the last natural-born human generation. The next generation will be, but they're going to turn us all into GMOs. It'll be cyborg, GMO, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. This is all being run very fast down a road into oblivion. In terms of the way of life that we knew, that's gone. It'll never come back. So hang on to your hats, be safe. I hope you're prepared, because I think this is potentially going to go on for many weeks before it's settled. There may well be a new election mandated by the Supreme Court or some court, some mechanism. We'll see. We will see. All right, let's get busy here and see what Donald Jeffries has to say. Welcome back, Donald. Thank you for being here as always. If you're new to the program, Donald Jeffries, a brilliant author and one of the most astute analysts out there. So how's it look to you, my friend?
How you doing, Jeff? Well, as I said many times, after 2016, I gave up making any predictions in politics because none of us saw Donald Trump being elected. So I got to tell you, it really is. I think it's all rigged. As you do, and they're talking about the ballots in Pennsylvania and stuff.
Oh yes.
The process is rigged. It goes back to the vote scam brothers who you interviewed. At least one of them. I wrote about him in Hidden History. It goes back to Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War when General Benjamin Beast Butler had that great quote that I have in Crimes and Cover-Ups where he wrote, and this is not conjecture, not a conspiracy here. These things are in the public record. You have to look for them. It's in a letter that he sent to General Edwin Stanton, who probably led the conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln, ironically later. But a very corrupt guy, Secretary of War, and he says right in there, I have done my best to stop Democrats from voting in New York. I mean, it's like
that's funny.
That's a confession,
and that goes way back. Laugh. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is when we first saw it, and you saw what happened in the 1876 election where Samuel Tilden, the Democrat, won both the popular vote and the electoral vote. But there were still some states in contention, so he didn't have quite the majority. So they simply voted an 8-7 majority in the House of Representatives. The 8, Republicans had the majority and gave the election to him. And I've said this before. That's the only reason Reconstruction ever ended, is because they gave that as a.
I remember it. That's a fascinating observation, and you're the only person I've ever heard mention that. Yeah.
Well, they don't tend to talk about it, but that's kind of that was a crumb they threw, a big crumb, and so it goes on and on and on, and obviously landslide Lyndon Johnson in the 1952 Senate race, where the dead vote first became popular, and the dead vote will be big again, and people joke about it, but it's it's like it's ridiculous. I mean, just think of the concept, and where you had a guy who ended up becoming a president after JFK was assassinated. And was instrumental in obviously escalating the Vietnam War, which JFK was in the process of withdrawing from. But I mean, it's you can sit there and laugh, but if you look at what happened there, where they had I don't know how many recounts, and he ended up winning by 87 votes. That's the ironic nickname and behind closed doors of landslide Lyndon Johnson and his
landslide Lyndon, that sleaze bag, that dirt bag. Oh,
absolutely.
Read about what did he do to his. Oh, his secretary wrote a book. I don't know. The guy was just a lecherous pervert. And why does that seem to be so common in the White House? It's amazing.
It really does. But he was given the Senate basically just much as George Bush was given the election in 2000 by the Supreme Court. In 1952, Justice Hugo Black, who was a former KKK member, by the way, who became a liberal Democrat, and he was it's cool, just like Robert Byrd. He just ruled, and he just gave the election to his buddy Lyndon Johnson. Of course, he would be rewarded with a seat on the Supreme Court. So this is, people look in history. These are the kind of people that are ruling us and making these decisions that sway elections. So I don't have any confidence at all, in the process. And but I don't know, I don't know which way it's going to go, because you may be right when you're thinking that Trump is going to win because they want to bring on more chaos, and so that could obviously be true. But
if they had a 2 or 3 month, period of crisis and chaos, that'll be enough to fuel the communists. They'll be out in the streets burning and looting. You watch. My hope is that somebody somewhere will actually step on these cockroaches and stop them, and not just cater to them, and not throw the police out there to be beaten, injured, hit with rocks, maybe killed. There has to be some real serious action taken against this kind of terrorism and civil insurrection. It has to be dealt with. I'm sorry if people get hurt, but nobody forced them to go out in the streets and burn buildings.
Well, you're right, but I don't know who. I was reading today. Apparently, it's come out. I don't know if you saw this or not, but all this information is coming forth that Trump is going to finally fire Christopher Wray, his never-Trumper FBI director that he appointed, and it was done nothing but target his allies and not his enemies. Nobody of his people that tried to. Time to Russia, getting false and so forth.
Yeah.
But with Sidney Powell, who seems to be a pretty feisty attorney, who was Mike Flynn's attorney, and got him, got the case dropped. So I don't really understand at this point and I don't know, but usually when you hear those things, it's tipping their hat one way or the other. But that could mean one of two things. It could mean that Trump is going to make this move now when it's too late. Nothing will be done about it, which would be typical of his years in office, where too little, too late, and then he's going to lose, so he won't be able to do anything. Or it may be, indication of, wow, I'm going to really go after him, and then of course he'll disappoint as he always does. So I don't know what they're talking about bringing Mike Flynn back again. He threw him under the bus at the beginning.
Really? Really?
I read that today.
I didn't see that. Huh.
Well, I was reading. I don't know. It was one of the conspiracy forums, but they were sourcing it from somewhere, and I can't. The Federalist or something. I don't know. One of those papers. But so I don't know what that indicates, but I can't believe. Like I said, if that's the case, that makes me think that he won't be back, because at least Sidney Powell seems honest. I don't know though. Maybe she's phony too. I thought Jeff Sessions would be decent, and he was a nothing. So I don't know what that means. But whatever happens, nobody powerful ever goes down. We know that, and so I just can't see this happening. But I have to confess that I am entertained by it and by the process, and I will be watching.
It's the greatest show on earth.
Yeah,
greatest freak show on earth.
Yeah, it is, and that's one, I think, the great thing that Trump has added to the political dynamic. He has made it much more interesting. I mean, there's no question about it, just by his presence. I mean, because right. He's such a lightning rod, and watching his enemies go apoplectic, and that's why I got to tell you, I mean, if he's winning tomorrow, turning on CNN and watching Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon, that will be must see TV. Because, I mean, the people that hate him so much.
Man.
I literally could see them just leaving the air and just saying, you know what, we're not going to report.
Trump will declare victory, or he will declare the election, the entire election, null and void on several bases. We'll find out. I don't see any outcome in the near future. I think it's going to end up in the courts.
Yeah, and again, what we talked about the country being so divided is that there is no place. If you do have a disputed election, really both sides you can't really determine. It's like a mediator. You can't really determine, what's going on, or a marriage counselor or whatever. There is nobody. There's not a person in the country that both sides would agree, okay, yeah, or organization. Yeah, okay, that's fair. We'll let them decide, make an honest decision. That's how polarized and politicized the whole process is. So somebody's going to be crying foul no matter what. The difference is, as we've noted many times, is that if Trump doesn't win and the election is given to, because I think it's going to be given to either one of them, whoever it is given to.
No, it's not good. No, it will not be resolved. There are too many irregularities. Apparent crimes have been committed. This is an enormous mess, and it's not going to be resolved tomorrow.
But you and I both know that the longer that drags, I don't think there's any way. Well, no, but the longer it drags on, the Trump side is going to be what they always are. They're going to be grumbling, and they'll be keyboard warriors. But they would never do anything. They're not going to go out in the streets. But the other side they want him gone. And they're not going to, no matter what. And I don't know what they will do beyond, maybe burning more.
Well, here's for openers. They're building a non-climbable wall around the White House right now as we speak.
Wow.
They will try and assault the White House.
He finally got his wall.
There's the wall. Finally got it. That's funny. What'll happen is the field lieutenants of Antifa and BLM will order the mindless morons into the line of fire. They'll sacrifice a bunch of them if they have to. That's what they want. They don't care. There's nothing to them. So that's what will probably trigger an even bigger fusillade of violence. You'll see.
Nothing. Like I said, nothing would surprise me at this point. The only thing that would surprise me would be some kind of clear cut, because the only way and again, the other side, Trump's on the other side is going to accept. If somehow there's a huge, difference in vote totals and everything tomorrow, which I don't think there's no way that will happen. I think it'll be close no matter what and contested, but that would be the only way. But if it's close and contested, as you noted, I mean, it hasn't been that long ago. Remember the year 2000 where, how long did that drag on? That dragged on for quite a while until the
Supreme Court. Went on for weeks, didn't it? Before the Supreme Court awarded Bush. I started to talk about that whole thing, but I didn't want to get into it. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and nothing. What has changed since then? And you know from talking to the Colliers and reading Vote Scam that the hanging chads and the League of Women Voters, all these things. That's exactly what they were talking about. Ironically, in the same place, Dade County, Florida, which the Janet Reno was the district attorney of during that time, and showing again that because if those of you who don't know, the Collier brothers were a couple ex-hippies who I think sold suntan lotion or something like that, as good ex-hippies would do, I guess, for a living.
But you gotta hand it to them. They went where no one has gone before.
Yes,
they followed their paper ballots to the county voting central.
Yes,
they fought their way in, tried to get in. They had a camera. I had a video camera. I really honored them. I forget which one. I can't get them confused. One had passed away, and the other one was still here. But I had such respect for them for doing that.
Oh, they were wonderful, and as you noted, they filmed it, and the whole idea was because the Republican Party in Florida had offered a reward, I think of $1 million or something, if you could document voting fraud. Well, they documented it. I mean, they show League of Women Voters, personnel just, tampering with ballots. They showed clear-cut evidence of it. They were kicked out of the place, of course. And Janet Reno, at that time, the DA of Dade County, Florida, didn't investigate the voting fraud. She targeted the Collier brothers for prosecution. And they had a murder of an editor that was killed in his driveway or something. I mean, this is, mob. This is America, man, and nobody talks about it. It all gets forgotten. That's why when I write things about hidden history, people say, oh, well, I'd forgotten that, because they just do. There's so much corruption, you forget. But, I mean, it's so in your face. And, of course, what happens? Janet Reno gets rewarded by becoming Attorney General under Bill Clinton. And, of course, is right there in the middle of Conspiracy Central. And, lording it over the mass murder at Waco and things like that. So I have no confidence, because the same people that were in charge now, their successors are in charge at these levels now. So Pennsylvania, they're openly saying that Trump is going to have to win Pennsylvania by at least 4 to 5 points to offset the late ballots. It's like, the fact they know
the late
is like,
and corrupt and fraudulent and hoaxed ballots. This thing is, I honestly see more and more major politicians openly mocking the rule of law. They don't say it necessarily in their words, but their actions and their watch how they speak. There's no respect for an orderly process here anymore. He made it 9 days arbitrarily that they could still accept mail order ballots in Pennsylvania. 9 days after the election. This is nuts. There's no respect for the Constitution, none.
Not at all. And you can say, Donald Trump obviously is this obnoxious, brusque personality, but if you saw Kamala Harris recently at a couple stops, and Tucker Carlson was showing her, and putting on the Hillary Clinton fake Southern accent to try to play to the South. She did that? Yes, she did it a couple times.
She's such a fraud. What a phony.
It's so funny. But so the thing about Donald Trump that you can say is that whatever else he is, he's always the same. He's not going to dress differently.
Well,
he's always the same personality. He's not going to put on an accent for anybody.
That's right.
He's just so I think that's part of his appeal to some people, is that it is what it is. And of course, we know how frustrating it is because he doesn't follow through on his promises and he just tweets. But that part of it, he is not, one of the great things I loved about JFK. And I see Donald Trump, one of the few things he might share in common with JFK is I don't think Donald Trump would put a stupid hat on, mainly because he probably wouldn't want to mess up his toupee or whatever, wherever he went. But JFK very famously never would wear. I think he wore a top hat on his inauguration. He had to. No other time you see him put hats on, and like they tried to give him a 10-gallon hat in Dallas before they killed him. And he said, if you come to the White House on Monday, I'll put it on there. You can see me there, and that kind of thing. But so I admire that where we don't kiss babies and all that stuff, because that's part of what made Trump, I think, refreshing, is that he isn't a politician. He's like a bull in a china shop.
I agree, and look, it's. I'll let you fill in the noun, but it's better to know than the one you don't know.
Yes.
Better to know the blank you know than the one. What is it? I don't even. Anyhow.
Yeah.
We know who Donald Trump is. We know that he breaks his promises, and I've suggested that at least a significant portion of those broken promises were because he's not allowed to do what he'd like to do. I'll give him a little bit here. He's under the control of the international elite. And if you get out of line, they'll JFK you. So just keep that in mind. I'm not excusing Trump. He made a lot of promises he should have kept. But I do really believe that some of them were things that he was told, you can't do that. So we'll find out soon enough. Back with Donald Jeffries in just a minute. The news batch shortly, your evening newspaper, as it were. You'll have a lot of interesting things to look at and peruse this night before Christmas, so to speak. Outrage. This really is outrageous. The creeper Joe Biden vows to ban all online gun and ammunition sales. Direct violation of the Second Amendment of the Constitution. He has no right to bar anyone buying through any medium, whether it's online or off, guns or ammunition. That's our Constitution. So this communist creep, who will not be in office long should they put him in there for some bizarre reason, which I can't see, is just mocking the Constitution. He also is promising now to exercise and implement a new approach to globalization. In other words, to let internationalists decide on the U.S. economy. He's giving the U.S. economy to world communism. He's promising a new approach to globalization, to let international communists decide what the U.S. economy and its policy is going to be. That's giving the American economy to world communism. Look, this isn't globalism, it's world communism. Okay? Let's keep that up front and center. A member of the Antifa who allegedly broke loose somehow, he said, I was literally brainwashed to hate America. And they do that. This is what they do. These are the communist shock troops, the foot soldiers, who will be sacrificed on probably many venues. They will attack the cops and provoke the police to defending themselves with deadly force. That's what they want. And they don't care how many of their own they trash. Doesn't matter to them. Here's another one. A communist Antifa soldier has told police, yelling at them, I hope all of your children get raped and killed. See, America has been shattered and fragmented with the aiding and abetting of the communist mainstream media, which has never stopped. You can't have a free press when 6 corporations own 96% of the media in a country, any country. I don't care what it is. You can't have it. We do not have journalism. We don't have a free press. We have an advocacy press, which is advocating communism. Here, the Camel, publicly, and here it is. She's publicly endorsing communism and says, here, get this language, all outcomes must be equal. And she embraces the core demand of authoritarian government. She's a communist. She also is pushing full-out communism, while the creeper, Biden, actually is bashing white people, whites, in his final day of, quote, campaigning today. So, and then here, Ho Harris has been caught urging invader aliens to help elect creeper Biden. She's asking illegal aliens to vote.
Yeah.
Whatever that takes. It is so over the top, it's not funny. We as Americans cannot and will not tolerate this. If we do, it's over. Snap on the leg irons. You're toast.
Yeah, and again, Donald Trump should be a very easy candidate to beat just because of his kind of ridiculous persona. He should be easy to debate. He should be easy to make look stupid. But when you have the other side, even the best of them, even the ones who are technically good, like Buttigieg and certainly Tulsi Gabbard, who I like very much. They are
very articulate. Different?
Yes.
Both very articulate. Different. What do we have now? A whore, Kamala Harris, and she did pronounce her name Kamala. She did.
Yes,
I'm going to stick with what she said.
Yes,
you saw that.
Do it herself. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You got a whore, and then you got a man who ought to be in Shady Acres. He's demented. He's a feeble, old, crotchety, mean, criminal bastard. That's what he is.
Well, they're representing extreme positions like that. As far as for instance, you talked about illegals voting, and this is the woke left. And I've said many times before, if you don't have to be a citizen to vote, then what is the point of citizenship? And there's no point. I mean, can you imagine? Can Americans? If we ever get back to traveling, but say you go on vacation to Bermuda or something, or you go to another country on vacation, you're in France or whatever, and you happen to be there at election time. Do you think any of those countries would let you vote? I mean, that's the idea is absurd. Because you don't represent the interests, you don't have a stake in those countries.
No.
Illegals are a little bit different because they're here, they circumvent the laws. But the whole idea of becoming a citizen is because you have a stake in the country. And if you're not a citizen, again, what is the point of being a citizen? Because that's supposedly your cherished birthright. I can vote. I'm an American citizen. Well, can the guy who just came across the border illegally.
Yeah.
So
just go sign up for a driver's license and you can vote in California. No problem.
Yeah, so it's not much of a cherished birthright, is it? And when you look at how corrupt the process already was, even without illegals voting, how rigged it is. Again, going back to Lincoln and the Civil War, it's not much of a cherished birthright. And not to mention the ridiculous choices we normally have. Which now in this case we do have a choice, and it's not because Trump is good at all. Trump has been a abysmal failure in terms of what he's done. But this election is a referendum on the system as much as it is on Trump. The people, I think, many people that are voting for Trump are doing it again to give a big, even though he's been the president, but he still represents theoretically the opposition.
Theoretically. That's right.
And he's done that. So voting for him is just a big giant finger to all the intelligence agencies, the military-industrial complex, Hollywood, all the late-night talks. I mean, the people, rhinos and liberal Democrats in the political world who have attacked him relentlessly since he's been in office. So it's basically saying, because you guys in the establishment, Trump is one person. Even if he was attempting to do something, which he really, I don't know that he certainly hasn't done anything, but even if he was attempting, you can't, one person against that is impossible to do. But what I fear is that voting for whoever runs against Trump, that is your establishment candidate, whether it's Biden or Kamala Harris if she gets in there. So you're giving a thumbs up to all the corruption, the rigged system, the crazy woke leftness, 57 genders, the lockdown and the mass everywhere. You're giving a thumbs up to that. And I don't see how anybody could do that. Again, nobody would vote for Trump. I mean, his cult would. His cult still loves Trump. But the people that really analyze it realize, much as, in 2016, it really, voting for Trump, even at that time when we didn't know that he would break his promises necessarily, we thought, well, maybe he'll actually attempt to do some of this revolutionary stuff.
Right.
But it was still a giant middle finger to the establishment, because it got to that point. The reason Trump's rhetoric resonated so much was because we had gone since the Eisenhower years and letting this infrastructure atrophy into third world standards, where we refused to upgrade it, while we're going and destroying the infrastructure in all these other little countries around the world with these senseless wars and meddling everywhere and not taking it, America first. That rang out.
Well,
to the
we killed 3 million in Iraq for what?
Sure.
Huh?
For what?
Just because we could. And that's all they. How many have we killed in Afghanistan? We've gone in and stolen Syria's oil and are selling it off. We just stole and sold $40 million of Iranian crude oil. This country, and I don't blame Trump, because it's this multi-headed Hydra beast. He couldn't control it if he wanted to. It's running on its own, much of it. It's crazy to watch it at work.
It would take a lot more than any one person, and said I don't think he's made much of any effort. He has tweeted a strong game, but that pleases his cult, because
that's right.
But
that's right.
As far as I think that anybody that looks at that other side, and I think that if they get in, I think they will probably largely disappoint their leftist base as well, because I don't think they'll. But I don't know. They may decide they just decide to ratchet it up and go, take that next step. Because we all know, when you talk about the Constitution, I wrote about this today. I said, we never have we had a situation like we have had in America for a long time, where they still pay attention to this wonderful document, which I still feel created the greatest form of government that man has ever devised. I believe the founders developed as perfect a system as you can develop, with the checks and balances and the three equal but separate forms of government, the wings of the government.
It's a politically divine document. It really is when you think about it. It
really is. But when you have every one of these people, Ilhan Omar, Kamala Harris, whatever, people that don't remotely believe in anything in it, they still swear allegiance to it. They are sworn to uphold the Constitution. Now, I don't know when the last person in office really attempted to uphold the Constitution. JFK maybe, but I mean, it's certainly in the White House. But so the idea that these people, and they'll badmouth it. I mean, the Ilhan Omars, the Squads of the world. I mean, they belittle it. None of them especially believe in the Bill of Rights. None of them believe in free speech. The left, and that's one reason why I get called out all the time. I'm certainly no right winger, but the left doesn't believe in free speech anymore, and they want you fired for saying things they don't like. You can't. That's just antithetical to what the founders fought a revolution for, and that doesn't represent the Bill of Rights, where the whole idea that was such a wonderful experiment was that can a people, as Benjamin Franklin said, we're giving you a republic if you can keep it. Well, I think at this point we've proven that we can't keep it, because we're about to see it.
Well, look where we are now. Say no more. It's right there. Here's Ho Harris. Oh, excuse me, Ho Harris. It's a family program, you see. Ho Harris. All right. Here's the Ho using her fake accent. Now get this. Listen to this. Does this woman honestly have the stature of being let's even start with senator. She doesn't even have the stature to be she should be in the House of Representatives if she's lucky. She's a senator. Now listen to how she's talking here. Just get this. Is this presidential, really?
Because you see, Fayetteville, when we get this thing done on Tuesday, Joe Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax bill. Because you see, Fayetteville, when we get this thing done on Tuesday, Joe Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax bill.
See, she's talking like some black woman from an urban ghetto.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
she's a
fraud.
Condescending
is that? How condescending is that?
I hope our
pandering.
African American listeners are just as revolted as I am. She is such a fraud.
I know that, when I was a blue collar worker for many years, and the blacks I worked with, who I got along very well with, we talked about that kind of stuff all the time, and they hated those kind of white phonies. And they still do. And they make fun of them behind their back now. But, because there's nothing more ridiculous. And that's why when the movie The Blind Side came out, if you remember that a few years ago, Louis Farrakhan wasn't just a radical guy. He represented, I think, the majority of the black community, because that was an incredibly condescending film. Whereas basically, this black guy, you had to have a white family take him in, and then we kind of civilized him like you might take a wild animal. Now the fact that he was 300 and some pounds and was able to play football, and we happened to be two of the most powerful boosters for the university, that had nothing to do with it. We would have still brought him in if he had, if he was 5'4" and 100 pounds and
Louis
play sports.
Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah,
exactly. Do you know he's a brilliant violinist?
Yes,
he's really good.
He was on the TEDx. He was one I talked about in Survival of the Richest. He must have come from at least a fairly upper class family, because he did have violin lessons, and he was on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour as a kid. So that. But yeah, I would love to talk to him, because when he's dead on with it, as long as he can get off the whites or devils thing, which he can't. Let's put it that way.
When he talks about Zionism, he's spot on. When he just leaves he's talking just about economics or anything like that, or the way the black community, he's exactly right. And but the problem is that kind of pandering, and really Kamala Harris must have watched Hillary Clinton's speeches from a while back, because she did the exact same stupid thing. Listen to this broad. I got to play this again. This should be so offensive to the people in Fayetteville. They should be outraged.
Because you see, Fayetteville, when we get this thing done on Tuesday, Joe Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax bill.
It's incredible. It's so arrogant. It's so insulting to the people there. I don't care who they are. They all should be insulted.
Absolutely. Well, again, it's about everything. I've said for a long time, we just can't, and no candidate can. And Trump panders as well. I mean, how many times does Trump brag about the African American unemployment rate? Good God, I'd like to have $1. Have you ever said so?
Better the one we know than the one we don't know. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
and we know Trump.
But I just wish, we would, if some candidate would go out there and just stress, look, we need to have the laws apply equally to everyone, the rules, the standards of conduct, whether they're on their job or in society generally. They have to apply for everyone. So that means, because you're black, you don't get to play your music as loud as you want, and nobody can say anything to you. Or you're racist. You don't get to come in late to work when nobody else does, because the white boss is scared to say something to you. But it also means it also means if you're wealthy and you're connected, that you can circumvent the law, and there's no chance of you being convicted of anything. Where the poor black guy is going to serve a life sentence for crack cocaine, but you get caught with powder cocaine and you go right to a rehab center because you need help. It needs to be punished. So that's the kind of thing. Right. And if you look at it that way, the law is the law, because laws mean nothing, rules mean nothing, standards of conduct mean nothing if the riffraff, the people who it applies to, know it's not being applied to everyone. If they know somebody gets away, how can anybody respect it? But when you have something like that, where Kamala Harris, who is a alleged black woman, she's mostly Indian, but she's trying to find her inner home girl.
And her father was partially white too, so she might be 25-30% black.
Exactly.
They kept calling Obama black, and it used to always kind of, I don't get rankled by these things, but I'd laugh. He's white. He's 50% white, 50% black. Yeah. You can call him white or you can call him black.
One of the
But
whitest
he's not
presidents
white.
we've ever had. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he was again raised by all white people. I don't understand.
Well, let's
that.
be honest now, and not honest, but let's be careful. Frank Marshall Davis, his real father, tutored him for years as a teenager, all about Marxism, communism. Frank Marshall Davis was the man that the FBI was watching very intently. He was a devout communist in Hawaii, and he's the father. Look at the most, I still say this, the most effective, important political documentary ever, Dreams of My Real Father, the real story of Barack Hussein Sotoro Obama. And it's by Joel Gilbert.
Joel Gilbert's
right? Film.
Yeah.
Brilliant film. Brilliant.
Yeah. And it's, there's so many, and certainly there's so much there, and I went into some of it in hidden history because this background obviously is
Give the name of your book again. I really want people to get this book. It's a book that your library really must have. You think you know about American history? You can read it here before Google takes it all away. He's got it.
Hidden History, and that's been my bestseller, Hidden History, Expose of Modern Crimes, Conspiracies, and Cover-Ups in American Politics. Right. And the prequel that came out more recently has been forwarded by Ron Paul's Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776 to 1963. You read them both together, and they basically give you the hidden history of America from the founding up through the Obama years. I mean, it's hard to believe, Trump isn't mentioned because I finished it before Trump came. But that shows, and the people that have criticized me because I criticized the people that attacked Trump more than I really praised Trump. But I tell them all, you just want to get rid of this guy's obnoxious personality. See, and you loved hidden history, so Trump wasn't mentioned in that. So you thought I got it pretty right with all these crimes and cover-ups and conspiracies that happened before Trump was on the scene. So if we could just go back to that time, I can remember the land of milk and honey before 2016 when there were no crimes and cover-ups and everything was cool. And then this guy came in, this crazy, giant orange man, and he came on the scene and ruined everything with his stupid tweeting and his misogyny and his alleged racism. And because of that, you guys are apoplectic, and you literally I've heard some of my friends on the left have rooted openly for a military coup. And a lot of you think that's what happened to JFK, and you've written about it. And now you're rooting for it. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But what I call the Trumpenstein Project, I think it was an experiment to divide the country and get them back into the left-right paradigm, has worked incredibly. It really has, because the sides are. I mean, how many people do you think tomorrow will be watching the election results that really are disinterested? Very few. I would think in America. I mean, maybe people that are just completely turned off to politics, but even that, because of the state the country's in, where we're in really such sad shape with the things going on in the cities, and whatever happens to the election results, there could be more.
I think 90 million Americans have already voted. Don.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that.
The voting. My wife attempted to go to vote 2 days ago, and she couldn't. I mean, there was a 3 or 4 hour wait. There was
at
my
the poll.
Neighbor couldn't
3 or
vote.
4 hours.
Yeah. And this is voting early. So I can't imagine it. My son, wants to vote, but he doesn't even know if because he thought, well, he'll wait and it's just take let his work go and let him vote, but. I don't know how many.
Well, you watch some of these I call them commucrats. You watch some of the commucrat states, right? The blue states. They're going to make polling places, I think, rather sparse in certain areas. That's one way they're going to do it. There's so much chicanery going on here. Not funny.
And that goes back again to the Civil War, where that's what the Union troops did to keep away suspected Democrat voters. And of course, we know that happened in the South too with black voters as well. So there's always been that kind of intent. And nobody should fear to be intimidated by going to the polls. That's absolutely ridiculous. You shouldn't have to fear that at all. But unfortunately now, if you look back to like a really boring election, maybe think, I don't know, Dole versus Clinton, or Dukakis versus Bush, or whatever. people would say, oh my God, what a horrible choice. And there's, but nobody was going to I don't think anybody was going to be intimidated on either side there. And, even Romney against Obama or something. I mean, was anybody excited about Romney? Come on. I mean, so nobody was, but this, because of Trump, this is where you have to fear. I mean, I know, talking to people and everything, they're terrified to put a Trump sign on their lawn. Nobody's scared to put a Biden sign on their lawn. But people are terrified.
There still aren't very many of them, fear or not. Yeah. That's too bad. That's really too bad. It was really time for Trump. I'm going to call them constitutional patriots to stand up and put their feelings on their lawn. To hell with anything else. They've got to stand up firmly. They can't buckle.
Well, I think that's true, but I can understand, especially if you have kids or something. That's what really.
I get it. I
want
get
the house being vandalized. I mean, I know, and and that's what gets me about.
Hell, they may burn some houses down.
Yeah, that's the saddest thing. I come from that left where it was Gandhi.
That's our election eve program. We hope you found it worthy, and do make the right decision tomorrow.